have a reservation?
Planning on eating out? Well, before the waitstaff takes your order, keep your eyes open for these 13 restaurant red flags you should never ignore.
Get the stomach straight.
All quiet on the Western Front.
Somebody eat the liver. I'm on a diet.
Finding a great dining spot takes a little bit more effort than just checking out Yelp reviews. The best strategy to find a good restaurant might start with actively avoiding a bad one. And there are a few red flags to watch for that signal you might have been better off cooking at home. In a 2022 survey, 80% of diners said they don't mind a busy restaurant and are willing to wait half an hour or less for a table. But for those unwilling to wait to be seated, this first red flag about an empty establishment might change your mind. Naturally, we'd all like to avoid slow service, long waits for a table, or crowded and noisy dining rooms. It's one thing to visit a popular restaurant during its down hours, but a restaurant not being busy during peak hours is a major red flag. A place that's chock full of customers is a sign of a quality, well-operated establishment that's in high demand, while somewhere that folks are avoiding could have outrageously high prices, rude staff, or just plain old bad food. If there's nobody else eating there, you probably shouldn't either.
I don't want to go there anymore.
Sights and smells.
Beautiful here. Everything smells like lavender.
Theme, decor, color coordination, and ambiance are all part of the eye candy before you dig into your meal. And depending on the restaurant, another thing you want to be seeing is the fish, at least if sushi is your choice for supper. Fresh fish portions being on display at a sushi joint is a sign of frequent product rotation, and it displays the vibrancy and variety of what you're about to enjoy. And there are bonus points if you're at a place with an open kitchen where you can see the sushi being prepared and assembled with your own eyes. Conversely, to sushi places that dazzle you with sights, restaurants that serve cooked seafood shouldn't have you being repulsed by what you smell.
Not bad.
Contrary to what we first assumed, fresh seafood actually shouldn't smell fishy at all, and an overwhelming fishy or briny scent in a restaurant might mean their seafood has spoiled or is far from being fresh. Here's where you can rely on your senses again and look around for signage and menus with positive words like local, seasonal, and native to indicate a catch of the day that's barely been out of the water. You can also rely on your sense of direction, and if there aren't any local bodies of water nearby, that catch of the day probably took much longer than a day to get there.
Please enter your destination.
It's not easy being cheesy.
Easy peasy rice and cheesy.
From burgers to pizza to cheese bread or cheese stick appetizers, fresh fromage is an important part of many delicious dinners. But when it comes to cheese, a restaurant's red flag might be when you're seeing too much of the stuff. There's a difference between the amount used in a slow-motion Instagram cheese pull and the proper, moderately balanced amount that goes into your dish. Oftentimes, a red flag establishment will use an overabundance of cheese to cover up an inferior pizza crust or a stale pasta dish. And at Italian restaurants, look out for the Parmesan in particular.
That much cheese?
Oh yeah, more cheese the merrier.
A good restaurant will have waitstaff fresh grate the cheese from a block of authentic Parmigiano Reggiano on top of your dish. But a red flag is if you see a screw-top shaker of the powdered stuff already on your table right next to the salt, pepper, and chili flakes. The powdered parm is technically a cheese-style product and is packed with so many preservatives that it doesn't smell, taste, look, or melt like the real deal does. And if they're willing to cut corners on your cheese, they're probably doing it on the rest of the menu.
Oh, it's raining cheese and this is my birthday, huh?
Feeling saucy.
Ooh, saucy.
With food, much like in life, you really can have too much of a good thing. Whereas too much cheese is a red flag, sketchy restaurants have more than one way to cover up their quality issues. To be sure, sauces have their place in many recipes, but anything that's got enough sauce for your dish to be doing the backstroke is a bad sign. Quality dishes will speak for themselves, and while small sides of sauce or dips are okay, large amounts of it are usually a sign of low-quality food. Good cuts of meat and fresh seafood are their own reward, and covering them up with a steak sauce or a teriyaki sauce suggests that your steak is probably subpar. Even with burgers, condiments should be minimal and kept to the basics of mustard, ketchup, and mayo, and maybe a barbecue sauce for special occasions.
It's my fancy sauce.
Too much toast.
That's delicious.
Good.
Toast at breakfast? Sure. Grabbing a lunchtime sub at Quiznos where they automatically run your sandwich through the toaster? Perfectly fine. Stopping at Subway where they didn't start toasting until 2005 but at least now give you the option to toast or not to toast? Fire up that footlong. But due to this next red flag, we recommend not trusting toasted bread at dinner restaurants. A high-end spot will have high-end breads and often bake loaves and dinner rolls in-house, or at least have a deal with a local bakery to keep the supply fresh.
Bread makes you fat?
Toasting adds texture and taste, but more often than not, it's used to disguise a baked good that's been frozen, has gone stale and therefore rock hard, or is simply a low-quality option that needs as much pizzazz as it can get. A basket of warm, fresh bread at a restaurant that hits the table just as your butt hits the seat is a sign that you found a good spot. So hold out for the good stuff and turn down that toast.
You get no bread.
First time here? Then become an official BabbleTopper by hitting that subscribe button. Thanks. The Crust Conundrum.
Pizza time.
While pizza has the most options of basically any meal when it comes to toppings, the part that holds it all together is best when limited. The major pizza chains are all about crust options, like the 5 varieties at Domino's, including handmade pan, crispy thin, and Brooklyn style. Their rivals over at Pizza Hut offer 7 different types, including fully loaded ones like bacon cheese stuffed crust and the timeless original stuffed crust. But if you're at a sit-down pizzeria, the number of crust options is considered a red flag. Focusing on perfecting one in-house style of crust is a sign of a restaurant's attention to detail and making sure they present the proper balance of textures, flavors, and the right amount of air to provide lightness. Otherwise, a store might have several mediocre crusts instead of one tasty trademark. The only red we want to worry about from our favorite pizzeria is the red tomato sauce, rather than a red flag.
Pizza? No, I'm good, thank you.
Too much menu.
What don't you want?
There are a series of red flags hidden in plain sight as soon as you pick up a restaurant's menu, and it can start with the number of choices. Much like a pizza crust needs focus to reach its peak, so too does everything else a customer can order. A menu that's overly long and jammed with items can suggest none of the items are particularly good, as opposed to a small menu of dishes that have been honed to perfection. Smaller menus often feature tried and true recipes that are well-traveled and second nature to the kitchen staff, which leads to a better dining experience. An overwhelming number of options can confuse both customers and cooks, causing the whole operation to slow down and therefore drop in quality, execution, and overall experience. If you can keep it simple, you can keep it successful.
It's good.
Messy menus.
I want to change the menu.
Looking at the menu can tell you more than just the lunch specials. It can be a red flag for cleanliness and organizational skills. Messy or mangled menus can be a bad sign, since a restaurant that isn't detail-oriented about one of the first things that a customer sees will very likely be lacking in all the areas that you can't see. Keep an eye out for menus with rips and tears and worn-out or dog-eared pages. Spelling and grammar are also something to watch for, and the biggest sign not to stick around is finding actual food on the menus. Stains and spills, fingerprints, crumbs, and other leftovers stuck on your menu are things that belong in the trash and not in a customer's hand. If a restaurant can't take the time to show you its options in a clean, professional, and presentable manner, then you don't owe them your time or business either.
We've saved you the menus with the most interesting stains.
Novelties are a no-no.
What's the problem?
Restaurants with cool designs, themes, and gimmicks are a great way to pull in customers. As long as there's been modern food service, there's been mascots and marketing to go along with it. And while a catchy jingle or kooky kitchen interior design is all well and good, the restaurant needs to back up that flash when it comes to the food. The same principle applies to the actual menu items, in that they should be about the goodness more than the gimmicks. Cute punny names are one thing, but when the actual dishes start to get over the top, it's time to worry. Gigantic half-gallon novelty cocktails with umbrellas and twisty straws are often done to excuse a top-shelf price for a bottom-shelf liquor.
Called the buried treasure.
Sure you guys want to do this?
Pizzas with more toppings than the average sandwich, alongside stuffed or stacked crusts to match, are usually masquerading poor quality ingredients. And burgers with multiple patty counts that are stacked to the ceiling are usually using quantity to make up for a lack of quality. All these things are designed to grab your attention, when the only thing you should be paying attention to is the happy dance your taste buds are doing.
Well, it was very tasty.
The servers are sus.
We need to talk.
This menu red flag isn't necessarily about the menu itself, but the knowledgeability of the folks selling what's on it. Nobody expects hard-working waitstaff to memorize a menu back to front, but lacking a basic understanding could be a sign of trouble. A menu that is confusing enough that customers need to ask a lot of questions is a problem in its own right, but the usual questions should be provided with easy solutions by your server. Is there a gluten-free bun option? Can you get a vegetarian version of the entree? Does the soup of the day have an ingredient you're allergic to? And of course, the most important query of all, is the guac extra? And if so, how much? If you get a blank stare to those questions, or the answer is, let me go ask my supervisor each time, that's a sign to say so long to this supper scenario.
Good evening, everyone.
Service without a smile.
Smile! Come on, where's that smile?
Expecting servers to memorize menus like they were studying for a final exam is, of course, unreasonable. But aside from their question and answer skills, there are a few other red flags a restaurant's employees can wave at us that we need to pay attention to. We all want quick, courteous, and friendly service, but a negative demeanor from your server might be a sign of bigger issues in the establishment. Waitstaff and servers have bad days like the rest of us, but a consistent showing of disinterest or displeasure can be a sign of a mismanaged restaurant. A work environment that even the employees who are getting paid to be there aren't happy in can suggest employee treatment and subpar supervisory skills. And that trickles down into apathy towards every other facet of the food service.
Bad waiter, bad waiter.
Steak situations.
Any chance of a steak?
For the beefy bunch, be on the lookout for the quality certification of the restaurant's meat cuts. The United States Department of Agriculture has 8 separate quality grades for steak, the top 3 of which are the go-tos for a sit-down dinner. And if they aren't listed by the restaurant, it might spell trouble. Of the 8 grades, USDA Prime and USDA Choice are the top 2, with Choice being the most widely available, making up around 75% of all graded meats, while Prime is the creme de la creme in the top 5%. Restaurants that don't proudly and obviously state a high USDA grade for their beef might try to describe their lesser beef with flashy terminology like 100% or certified. But it's just not as good if it's not official. The next time you bust out a steak knife, just hope that the red meat is not a red flag.
Yeah, it's a big steak.
Ridin Dirty.
Dirty, clean. Dirty, clean.
Cleanliness is not to be taken lightly in the restaurant business. Most people will never get a first-hand look at how intricate the cleaning level of most professional kitchens is. But unkempt areas in the rest of the restaurant can be a very accurate indicator. Tabletops that aren't wiped, carpets that aren't vacuumed, or smudgy windows and dusty drapes are all signs that keeping tidy isn't a priority. The biggest and most obvious place to check, though, is the bathrooms. If the place that should be spotless is anything but, it only leaves us asking how the rest of the establishment is cared for. Any contact surfaces in the building that aren't kept spick and span will inevitably track uninvited nastiness to the food and food-adjacent zones. If this is the case, it's a red flag and a green light to reverse course on your dinner destination.
This is dead.
Stick around, leave a comment, tap or click on another great video, hit that subscribe button, and ring that notification bell.